Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. Please visit our website, cscatlanta.org, for a complete list of live and recorded events. We invite you to sign up for our newsletter to stay connected to all future programs.
My name's Kimberly Dalladonna. I'm a culinary nutritionist. So I'm a classically trained chef, but then I also have a degree in nutrition, and my food tends to focus on supporting people who are dealing with dietary limitations or disease. I am definitely stretching with the bisque because I don't typically do cream-based soups. So I thought it was actually a really good perspective. You and I are learning together with this recipe. And bisque is traditionally a French soup with cream in it made with shellfish. And the shells of the fish that you're using are the base of the soup. So we're going to start with this stock. I'm going to show you how to make a very simple, in theory, shellfish stock. So one thing I'm going to do with this recipe, just to lighten it up and make it a little more supportive of anti-inflammatory and a cancer support diet, is I'm going to replace about half of the butter with olive oil. So I'm going to start building my foundation, the stock, with olive oil. And then I got shrimp from Whole Foods, and they were kind enough to peel and clean the shrimp for me and save the shells. So that helped a lot. So a little tip, if you have a Whole Foods in your area and you want to make this, you can order your shrimp. You can call them ahead of time, and you can order your shrimp peeled. And there's only certain kinds they'll do. It has to be like the easy peel shrimp, whatever size it is. But they'll peel it for you and they'll save the shells. So we start by browning this is actually pinking up our shrimp shells. So you know when you cook shrimp, it goes from this sort of white or gray color to pink. So we're going to make sure our shells are all pink before we begin adding the other ingredients. And this is just like browning meat, searing meat before you make, maybe a pot roast or a stew. This develops so much more flavor than if you just started with water and shrimp shells. It's actually a process called Maillard browning, and it's the protein equivalent of caramelization. So you're developing those proteins with heat. You're changing the proteins to be sweeter. It brings out a ton of flavor. So they're getting pink, and now I want to add the rest of my ingredients. And really, this is all about, these are all very subtle flavors that we're using for this bisque, and we're going to layer them and build flavor as we go. So first, with our shells, we're developing flavor by browning or pinking them. We're not really browning them. And then we're going to add all of these beautiful ingredients to our stock. So we'll add dried tarragon. We're going to use bay leaves, which I love. And bay leaves are just one of those background notes that you may or may not taste in stock, but again, a nice subtle flavor. We'll add some thyme, and we don't even have to worry about pulling it off of the stems because we're going to strain this out. We're adding peppercorns, and I want to add a little bit of onion. My recipe doesn't call for it, but I want a little more flavor in here so that I have a nice flat surface so that it's safe for me to cut on. And then with my onion, it's mostly clean, and honestly, it doesn't really matter because this is all going to get strained. And I'm going to throw that in there. And then we need 5 cups of water and about 10 minutes. So while that is going, I'm actually going to, I think I'll just start our saute with the vegetables that are going to be our soup base. All right, so we want to begin our vegetables for our soup base, and we're going to make sure we develop a lot of flavor there too. The vegetables for our soup base are onion. This is a red onion. Our friend, what's her name, Beth. This recipe is from Beth, Entertaining with Beth. She likes red onion, and I think it's because she likes the color. Color just helps make your shrimp bisque even more pink. So we're going to use the butter now, and the butter is going to give our vegetables a richness. So we're going to use about 1 onion. Let's melt the butter. I'm going to use about 1 onion, maybe a carrot. And I'm actually not even going to use all of this celery. When I made this soup, I realized my celery has an extra celery-ish flavor. It's like a really strong celery, and it took over. So I am going to just use maybe just a few slivers of this celery, not a ton of it. And smelling that even more. Get my onions going. Get a tiny bit of celery, not too much. And my carrots, which add so much sweetness. Red onions, carrots, celery, and garlic. Okay, 1 to 2 cloves of garlic. All right, so we'll get those sauteing, and it'll probably be ready to go into the blender when the stock is ready for us to work with it. Are you all hearing me okay? Is this okay? Great. All right. So what we're doing right now with these vegetables is called sweating. We're just cooking them over like a medium-low heat. We don't want them to brown. We don't want that caramelization. If the heat is too high, our onions and our garlic will have a little bit of bitterness when we put it into our mix, and we don't want that at all. There's a lot of recipes where we do, but not this one. So that's why we're sweating them. And that's a pretty typical thing to do if you're making any kind of a stock or soup. And this guy, let me show you this stove. This is simmering nicely. You'll know when your veggies are done, when your onion is all translucent and your carrots are soft. And I tried to make these really little so we could go fast without burning them. But like I said, labor of love, nothing quick about this guy. All right, veg is ready. I think my stock is ready. I'm going to turn my veg down, turn my stock off. Not sure how to do that, making it 0. And then what I need to do is pour. All right, so now that this is ready, what I want to do is I want to add brandy and deglaze with brandy. Bisque can use white wine, brandy, sherry. They're all very delicious. This recipe calls for brandy. So I am going to deglaze with a 1/2 cup of brandy. And you really want to cook this down gently. If you cook it down too quickly, you could get some bitter flavors, so go easy. I learned a lot about bitterness this weekend because my first batch was bitter. So I learned that celery can be very bitter. If you don't cook your tomato paste low and slow, that can get bitter, which surprised me because tomatoes always feel really sweet and salty to me, especially tomato paste. And it didn't occur to me that the alcohol would be bitter. Okay, so let's put that on 3. Okay, so now we've deglazed with the brandy, and that is because when you're cooking especially in a stainless steel pan, so much of the flavor gets stuck on the bottom of the pan that you want a little bit of liquid, and the liquid should have some acid in it, and that will deglaze. That will pull all of those flavors up off of the bottom of the pan. And that's called the fond. It's a French term, which is really the foundation flavor of your dish. Okay, so we have our brandy. If you're working with a gas flame, you want to turn your gas flame off before you add your brandy because it could ignite and be dangerous. We don't have that Bisque here today. Super safe. Okay, so now I got my brandy, and now I'm going to add my tomato paste. Afraid I might have too much for this little pan. All right, now this guy, how long does it go? 5 minutes. All right, I'll lose track of time. 5 minutes. And then we're going to put it in the blender and we're going to puree it until it's smooth. And while that's going, let's make a salad. So we've got a shrimp salad with tarragon recipe. So this one uses the shrimp, but I actually used a different shrimp. This is medium shrimp that I bought already cooked, and it was peeled and the tails are off, and it's so perfect. You can even see their tiny little tails, which you don't often see. They're very cute. And they're very good. Sustainably sourced. They came from Lidl, and they're great. So we're going to use a pound of shrimp. We're using a half a cup of plain yogurt. You can use Greek or regular low-fat plain yogurt, whatever you like. Got yogurt and mayo. And this is just a variation on if you were to use sour cream, you know, this is just a lighter version. And I love yogurt in place of sour cream. So if you make ranch dressing, and typically you use sour cream and mayo, you can use yogurt and mayo. And the advantage with the yogurt for me is that it's, you can choose the level of fat. You can have a whole milk yogurt, or you can have 2%, like a low-fat yogurt, 1%. You can have non-fat. And yogurt has a similar tang to the mayo, so you can back off the mayo and do more yogurt, and then you get probiotics, and that supports gut health and gives you less saturated fat. So I've got mayo and then lemon juice, which we need about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, which I believe is about half a lemon. I'm going to just put it right in there. And it's just going to be fresh and bright and tangy. Keeping my eye on all of this. Okay. All right, so we have our lemon juice. And then we want 3 tablespoons of chopped tarragon. So, okay, you can see what I'm doing. I thought I'd show you how to chop herbs. Y'all may not have done this with Mike. So with my herbs, same thing. Grasp with my, I'm a righty, so I got my right hand on the handle. I'm pinching at the bolster, and then I'm going to use my claw, and I'm going to give my herbs a rough chop. And I chose herbs, I chose the tarragon that didn't have thick stems. But if I run into any thick stems, you can run the knife along the thick stem to get the leaves off. And then just pull those out. And then when I have my little rough chop, I put them in a pile. And I put this is the spine of the knife, the back of it. I put my 3 fingers on the spine of my knife. I put the tip of the knife on the board, and I chop down. I don't remove the tip of the knife from the board. I chop in a fan shape, going back and forth. And then if it gets all spread out too much, I just push it back together with my knife. And I just go back and forth until I have the size I want. You can do this with garlic, parsley, any herbs that you're using. And it makes your kitchen smell really good when you do it too. One of my favorites is cilantro. I love the way the kitchen smells after I chop cilantro. It just smells really clean. And then you've got your lemon in here too. So that's probably not the safest way to get your herbs off your knife. My mom always said, do what I say, not what I do. So don't do that. And then you can just brush them in there. So you've got chopped tarragon, and then we need 2 scallions or green onions sliced thin. I already did that, but I'll show you my, actually, you know, when I teach kids to cook, and I always have them use a scissor for the scallions, because if your knife isn't super sharp, these are hard to get sliced as thin as you want them. But just want skinny little pieces of onion. And let's see, I've got the onion here. And then celery. And actually, I kept the leaves from the celery, and I think I'm going to put those in the salad too. I really like them. So that's something you can do when you're, when you're just making salad. You can mix these with your salad greens, and it's really nice. It's very distinctive. So if you're making salad and you put celery in it, I think onions go really well with celery. Green apple goes really well with celery. Peppers. Let's throw some of that in there. And then lemon zest. So I already zested the lemon. I threw my lemon zest in there, and lemon zest is one of my favorite ingredients. I use it all the time. Salt and pepper to taste. We'll taste it after we mix everything in. I know I want pepper. I'm actually just going to throw the pepper in right now. This is another little thing I do for myself. I grind the pepper and I leave it sitting in the thing so it's right there when I'm ready to use it. And a dash of cayenne pepper, just the tiniest bit of cayenne. I've already put it away. But just the tiniest bit of cayenne, won't be hot. You won't know it's in there. It's very French. I mean, you can make it hot if you like it hot, but we're not going to do that today. When you're cooking for a lot of different people with a lot of different tastes, you can always just put it on the side and let people decide. So we've got all of our ingredients except for the salt. So let's taste for salt before we put our shrimp in there. It's so lovely, so bright. I'm going a little more lemon juice in there too. Definitely needs salt. I'm going to grab just a little bit more lemon. Okay, there we go. All right. And this makes a generous amount of dressing, which is perfect because we're going to serve this over greens. And this same dressing will coat our greens. And I think it'll be a nice complement to the shrimp bisque because it's light and cool and bright and crisp. And our bisque is hot and I don't know, so layered, unctuous, and so many deep flavors in there. Okay, So there's that, and then we're going to put it on a beautiful bed of greens, and we're going to serve it for lunch. Let me get some greens so I can at least show you how beautiful it'll look. A little preview. So all of these pretty colors in here. And you know, we eat with our eyes, so we want beautiful colors. And then all of the different colors are going to represent different antioxidants, different nutrients. So all the different greens have different nutrition. And then we put our pretty little shrimp salad on top. If you like things hot, you can put a little pinch of cayenne on there. If you really want to dress it up, you could put a little bit of lemon zest, a little sprinkle of lemon zest. There you go. So there's your green salad with shrimp. We'll plate all of that later. I'm going to put this back in the fridge so it stays nice and cold. And we'll finish our soup. So I'm going to put a few shrimp in here so we get a nice shrimpy flavor before we puree this. And the shrimp and the vegetables are going to give everything, they're going to give this soup a lot of body. It's going to give it a lot of texture. And shrimp will poach very quickly. A minute is probably as much as you need. Okay, so we've got all of the ingredients in there. And we want to put it in the blender. Now we're going to add salt. All right, so we got that. And now we can put the shrimp in. And this guy gets a tablespoon, and this guy gets 3 because it's 3 batches. I should have paid attention to where the whisk was. It's here. Okay.
Thank you for joining Cancer Support Community Atlanta for this program. If you're interested in other live or recorded programs, please visit the online program tab of our website, cscatlanta.org, or follow us on Facebook. We'll be sharing additional information on upcoming programs.